Welcome back to English Podcast course. Today, we'll practice fun English conversations for.
You know what's wild? How quick we are to leap to conclusions. Sometimes I catch myself making up a whole backstory for someone just because of a look they gave me in the elevator.
I've totally done that. Like, someone's on their phone at a restaurant, and suddenly I'm convinced they're either avoiding their date or plotting the next big startup. Our brains just love filling in the blanks with whatever story fits.
Exactly. And half the time, my assumptions are way off. Maybe that person is just stressing about work or, I don't know, trying to avoid spilling spaghetti on their shirt.
Or maybe they just got a weird text from their mom. It's funny we're all starring in our own movies, but we forget everyone else has their own going on too.
But it gets risky, right? Those instant stories we tell ourselves can totally mess with real relationships. Like, how many friendships have fizzled because someone misread a text message?
Yeah. Those read at 4:18 p.m. but no reply moments. Suddenly the mind spiral begins. Did I say something wrong? Are they mad? Meanwhile, the other person's just in the grocery store, comparing avocados.
I've legit apologized for things I only imagined. It's wild how a small misunderstanding can snowball if you let your imagination run amok.
That actually reminds me of a time I almost ruined a group project over a misunderstood emoji. A single ambiguous face nearly cost us a semester grade.
Let's dig into that. Why do we even do this? Why are our brains wired to leap before we look?
Blame evolution a little, I think. Our ancestors needed to make snap calls like, is that a friendly neighbor or a saber-toothed tiger? So making assumptions was a survival hack. But now it just makes dinner parties awkward.
And the world moves so fast now. We want quick answers, so our minds fill in gaps, even if we're just guessing. It's like mental autocorrect, but with people's lives instead of spelling.
Totally. Plus, we're bombarded with so much info. It's easier for our brains to just slap a label on something and move on. Only, people aren't typos you can just delete.
Funny you say that those labels can really stick. Have you ever had someone decide what you're like before you've even spoken?
Definitely, and it can be super frustrating. For instance, one time at work I got labeled as quiet on my first day, and suddenly no one expected me to have ideas. Took weeks to shake off that tag.
That's the worst. It's amazing how one snap judgment can shape someone's whole trajectory at work, school, even in families.
Or online, too. Social media's the ultimate hotbed for this one tweet, and you're instantly a villain or a hero, and nobody waits for context.
So here's the million-dollar question. How do we stop ourselves from doing it? What helps you hit pause before your brain writes its fan fiction about someone else's life?
Lately, I try to ask myself, what if there's another explanation? It doesn't always work, but it buys me a few seconds to check my own story.
I love that. Sometimes I'll force myself to get curious instead of judgmental, like actually ask the person what's going on, if it feels right. It's amazing how often the truth is way more boring than my dramatic assumptions.
And honestly, even just remembering how often I've been misunderstood helps me cut others some slack. We're all just trying to make it through the day without embarrassing ourselves too badly.
After talking through all this, I'm realizing that not jumping to conclusions is kind of an everyday superpower. It's like giving people and ourselves a little more room to be real.
Couldn't agree more. Some of my favorite surprises in life have come from holding back judgment and just seeing what unfolds. Turns out, reality is way weirder and more interesting than any story I could invent.
Maybe we should all try to be a little more patient and maybe just a bit nosier in the right way. Ask questions, don't assume, and maybe we'll all get along a little better.
Here's to fewer assumptions and more honest conversations. The world could use a lot more of that.
You know, I've always thought there's something a little thrilling about asking for suggestions. It's like opening the door to ideas you never knew you needed.
Totally. Half the time, you end up discovering some weird gem you'd never have tried otherwise. Like, last month, a friend suggested kombucha donuts to me, never thought I'd be into that, and yet here we are.
Kombucha donuts? That's a wild combo. But you're right. There's this excitement to not knowing what you'll get. It almost feels like a tiny adventure just waiting to happen.
Exactly. It's like mini adventures without the risk of actually getting lost in the woods. And sometimes other people's ideas shake you out of your usual routine, which I love.
That reminds me. Though, do you ever worry that taking random suggestions could backfire? Like, what if it totally flops?
I've definitely had a few misfires. Once, I took someone's advice to watch a 4-hour black and white movie on a Friday night. I made it 40 minutes in before bailing for pizza.
Oh man, I've been there too. But honestly, even when it flops, there's a good story in it. Plus, it's not like you have to follow every single suggestion to the letter.
True, you can always pick and choose. I think the trick is being open, but not feeling pressured to say yes to everything. Otherwise, you'd end up with some questionable haircuts and way too many houseplants.
Speaking of being open, have you noticed that the way you ask for suggestions totally affects what you get? If I just say, "Any ideas?" I get crickets or chaos.
Totally. If you're too vague, you get everything from skydiving to try a new toothpaste. But if you're specific, like, what's a book that'll make me actually laugh? People get creative in the best way.
Yes. It's almost like you have to give people a map before they can help you find treasure. The more details, the better.
Couldn't agree more. And sometimes the best suggestions come when you share a weird little detail about yourself. For me, saying I love sci-fi and hate sad endings gets me some awesome, super tailored recommendations.
Funny thing though, ever feel totally overwhelmed when everyone pitches in at once? Like, you ask for a podcast to listen to and suddenly you've got a 30-title spreadsheet.
Oh, absolutely. It's like opening Pandora's box, but instead of chaos, it's just endless playlists. Last year, I asked for road trip songs, and now my playlist could soundtrack a drive to the moon.
That's the danger of crowdsourcing ideas. Sometimes I feel like I need a spreadsheet just to sort through all the suggestions.
The trick might be setting a limit like, give me your top 3 or 1 suggestion per person. Otherwise, you risk recommendation overload and never actually trying anything.
After all that, I still think keeping the door open to suggestions is totally worth it. Even if only 1 out of 10 turns into something great, that feels like a win.
I feel the same way. Some of my favorite hobbies and friendships started because I took someone's off-the-wall advice. You never know what'll stick.
Exactly. And even when you end up with a dud suggestion, at least you've got a funny story to tell or a new appreciation for your own taste.
I like to think of it as collecting experiences, not just recommendations. Even the weird ones add a bit of flavor to life. So, next time someone's got a wild idea, maybe just give it a shot.
You ever notice how often people drop the phrase, "that makes sense" in a conversation? I swear, sometimes it feels like our brains are on autopilot, just looking for a way to move things along.
Honestly, it's like the verbal equivalent of nodding. Maybe we just want the other person to know we're tuned in, or at least pretending to be. But you're right, it rolls off the tongue almost reflexively.
And half the time, I wonder if we really mean it, or if we're just trying to avoid looking confused. There's comfort in those 3 words, like, phew, I don't have to ask for another explanation.
So true. Sometimes I catch myself saying it even when I'm still processing what the person said. I guess part of it is not wanting to slow down the conversation or look clueless.
That reminds me, do you think saying "that makes sense" is more about reassuring the other person or just giving ourselves a moment to catch up?
It's probably a bit of both. For me, it's a go-to when I need a second to connect the dots. Plus, people like feeling understood, so it's handy social glue.
I like that social glue. It's like we're all playing this secret game, tossing out affirmations just to keep everything smooth and friendly.
Exactly, and it's kind of wild how we're trained to prioritize harmony over clarity sometimes. I mean, how often do we really stop and say, wait, actually, that doesn't make sense to me?
Funny you mentioned that there have been times when I've said it just to avoid an awkward pause, even though I was secretly lost. Ever done that?
Oh, definitely. Last week, my coworker explained some new workflow, and I kept nodding and that makes sensing, even though my brain was basically static.
It's like a survival tactic, right? Fake it till you make it, then frantically Google it later.
Totally, sometimes it's way less intimidating than admitting you need a step-by-step repeat. We've all been there.
So, if that makes sense, is our safety net. What could we say instead, something a little more honest or specific?
Sometimes I'll say, "Oh, I hadn't thought about it that way," or "That's an interesting angle." It feels more genuine, especially when I'm not 100% sure I'm following.
Good point. I've tried saying, "Let me make sure I got this," and repeating it back. It takes guts, but the conversation feels way more real.
And honestly, it can open the door for better understanding. People usually appreciate when you show you're trying to really get it, instead of just nodding along.
Now I'm thinking, maybe we should challenge ourselves to ditch the auto. That makes sense for a day and see what happens. Could be awkward, could be super enlightening.
That would be a wild experiment. I imagine a lot more pauses and maybe some real aha moments. Worst case, we all get a little braver about saying, "Wait, I'm lost."
Or, at the very least, we get a few good stories out of it. Hey, maybe that's how better conversations start, just by being a bit more honest, instead of defaulting to those little phrases.
Here's to trading in the safety net for something a bit more real. Who knows, maybe next time someone says that makes sense, they'll really mean it.
So, every time I hear someone say, "It's a win-win situation," I can't help but wonder, do both sides actually win, or is that just wishful thinking?
Well, from my end, a true win-win is when both parties genuinely feel like they're gaining something valuable, not just settling. It's that rare moment where compromise isn't a dirty word, you know?
Yeah, it's almost like finding a unicorn. Everyone walks away happy. But I guess sometimes people just throw the phrase around to make a deal sound sweeter than it actually is.
Honestly, I've seen it used as a sugarcoat tactic too, but when it's real, it's kind of magical. Have you ever actually landed a real win-win with someone?
I think the closest I got was haggling for a used bike seller wanted it gone. I wanted a deal, and we ended up both grinning. Felt pretty fair.
That's the sweet spot. I had something similar during a job negotiation, got some flexibility. They got someone willing to jump in fast. Neither side felt shortchanged.
There's a certain energy when that happens, right? Like the vibe in the room shifts, and instead of arguing, you're almost collaborating.
Absolutely. It's like the tension drops and suddenly you're on the same team. I wish every negotiation could feel that way, but sometimes it's more like dodgeball with paperwork.
That actually brings up the biggest myth, that a win-win has to be perfectly equal. In real life, isn't it more about both sides feeling satisfied, even if the gains look different on paper?
Definitely. I've noticed people get hung up on tallying who got what. But sometimes, what matters most to me isn't even on the other person's radar, so we both walk away happy for totally different reasons.
Like trading chores as a kid, I'd swap dish duty for walking the dog, and my brother thought he scored, but so did I. Different priorities, same level of contentment.
Exactly. And sometimes, it's just about the timing or avoiding a headache rather than getting the biggest prize. That flexibility is what really makes a win-win possible.
Still, there are those times when no matter how you slice it, someone's going to feel shortchanged. What do you do when a win-win just isn't on the table?
Tough spot. I try to be upfront about limits. Sometimes, you just have to settle for a fair trade even if nobody's popping champagne. It's better than pretending everyone's thrilled, right?
For sure. And trying to force a win-win can backfire. People see through it if the deal's lopsided. Sometimes, you just have to be real and accept a tie.
Yeah. Honesty goes a long way. Plus, leaving things on honest terms keeps the door open for better deals in the future. It's not all or nothing.
Switching gears. Have you found ways to nudge more situations toward win-win in your day-to-day? Like outside the big negotiations?
Actually, yes. I find just asking people what really matters to them can turn a standoff into a creative solution. Even splitting dessert can be a win-win if you figure out who likes what.
Love that. I started offering small choices like, you pick the movie, I'll order the snacks. Little things, but they add up to more harmony overall.
Exactly. Those everyday micro-wins build trust. And over time, I think people remember how you made things easier, not just who got their way.
You know what gets me every time? When someone says, I get what you mean, but you can just tell they're totally lost.
That cracks me up, honestly. It's like a social safety net if you have no clue what's going on. Just toss out, I get what you mean, and hope no one notices.
I swear, I've done it in meetings more times than I care to admit. Just nod along, pray for a topic change, and try to look thoughtful.
Been there. Sometimes I wonder if anyone in those calls actually knows what's happening or if we're all just faking comprehension together.
There's a weird comfort in the collective confusion, isn't there? Like at least we're all lost together.
So, speaking of work calls, have you ever had someone repeat, I get what you mean 5 times in the same 10 minutes? I feel like it becomes their shield against questions.
Totally. It's like they think if they say it enough, it'll magically become true. Or maybe it's the grown-up version of raising your hand, hoping you won't get called on.
I actually had a colleague who'd say it and then immediately ask a question that clearly showed she didn't get what was going on. Points for confidence, though.
Oh, I've met her twin, trust me. It's almost like an unspoken agreement. We pretend to understand. Nobody looks bad. And the meeting moves on. That makes me wonder, are we just terrible communicators? Or is miscommunication just part of being human?
You know, I think it's a bit of both. I mean, even when I genuinely think I get what someone means, later I realize I interpreted it totally differently.
Yes, like when you confidently follow instructions you got, only to find out you were supposed to do the opposite. Manual assembling furniture, anyone?
I've put together more backward bookshelves than I care to admit. My I get what you mean is really just, I sincerely hope this is right. What's wild is how universal this is. I had a friend from Japan who told me they do the same thing, just nod along and say the equivalent of, I understand, even if they don't.
That's so interesting. I always assumed it was just an awkward Western workplace thing. But maybe it's just a human thing. No one wants to look confused.
Exactly. It's like a survival mechanism. But sometimes I wish we could all just admit, no idea what you meant, can you explain? Without feeling silly.
Same here. Imagine how much clearer everything would be if we dropped the act and just got honest about what we don't understand. Funny thing, though, I think all those little moments of not quite getting it actually bring people together. Like, you bond over misunderstanding.
There's a strange truth to that. Some of my favorite stories came from total confusion or hilarious misinterpretations. It's like, if you can laugh about it, you're halfway to understanding each other.
Absolutely. And honestly, sometimes the best connections come from that shared, wait, what? Moment. Vulnerability beats perfection every time.
Agreed. So next time I say, I get what you mean, maybe just double check and make sure I really do, or at least join me in the confusion.
You know, sometimes in a conversation you just get that itch like, all right, let's switch it up. But figuring out the right moment to move on can be trickier than it sounds.
Absolutely. And half the time it happens when I realize we've both started repeating ourselves. Or when someone's eyes glaze over classic sign, it's time for a new topic.
Oh, the glazed eyes. I once tried talking about tax codes at a party, and after 5 minutes my friend was suddenly fascinated by, like a potted plant in the corner.
Yeah, I've been on both sides of that. Either bored out of my mind or trying to wake someone up with a completely unrelated question. It's like a social sixth sense, right?
Speaking of sixth senses, what do you look for when you're figuring out if it's time to move on in a chat?
Mostly, I pay attention to body language. Fidgeting, checking phones, that's the universal sign someone's mentally already somewhere else. Or, honestly, just a dramatic sigh can do it.
So true. I've noticed people start giving these one-word answers, like they're hoping you'll just get the hint. It's almost like dolphins using sonar, but with awkward pauses.
Exactly, and sometimes the bravest thing to do is just acknowledge it. Like, hey, should we talk about something else? That little reset can save a conversation from flatlining.
That actually reminds me, when you do change topics, how do you keep it from feeling abrupt or, like a weird U-turn?
I like to find a thread even if it's barely there. Like, if we're talking about movies and someone's bored, I'll pivot to snacks at the theater. Food is always a safe move.
Food really does save the day. Sometimes I'll just use a funny story to bridge topics, or even confess, I have no segue, and dive in. People appreciate the honesty.
There's something refreshing about that, right? Like, we don't have to be TV anchors with perfect transitions. A little genuine awkwardness actually makes things more relatable.
But what about those times when changing the topic feels a little risky? Like when someone's venting or sharing something deep.
Oh, that's a tough one. I try to let them finish, maybe offer a supportive word, and then gently steer things elsewhere. Sometimes I'll ask, do you want to keep talking about this, or take a breather?
I've found that works well. Giving someone that small out without making them feel rushed can make all the difference. Sometimes people just want to be heard. Then they're ready for something lighter.
Right, and honestly, being a good conversationalist is more about listening than talking. If you sense the mood is heavy, tread carefully. No one likes a hard left turn into cat memes mid-heartbreak.
Once you've decided to move on, do you have a favorite way to spark up the next topic?
Honestly, tossing out an offbeat question works wonders, like, what's your go-to karaoke song? Or, if you could teleport anywhere, where would you go right now? People light up.
I love that. It's almost like inviting everyone to hit the refresh button. Sometimes the next topic is the best one of the night, just takes a bit of courage to get there.
And hey, at the end of the day, conversations are just a string of little adventures. You never know where a simple, "Can we move on to the next topic?" might lead.
Thanks you and see you next time.